Welcome and thank you for joining us. Today, you are about to listen to a beautiful and heartfelt story called A Big Mistake. This story is written in simple English, perfect for learners who want to improve their reading and listening skills while enjoying a touching tale of love, family, and surprising life twists. So, get comfortable, relax, and let yourself be carried away by this unforgettable journey. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Unexpected Meeting. It was a calm and peaceful Saturday afternoon in Casablanca. The sun was soft, casting warm golden rays through the narrow streets, where a few people strolled leisurely or sat chatting under the shade of trees. The distant hum of cars mixed with birds singing and the low murmur of city life. Amira, a young woman in her late 20s, dressed simply but elegantly in a beige coat and scarf, walked slowly along the pavement. She had just finished a long week at work and felt the need to find a quiet place to rest her mind and gather her thoughts. Near her office was a small cafe she had never visited before. Its wooden sign swung gently in the breeze, and through the large glass windows, she could see cozy tables, warm lights, and a few customers enjoying their drinks. Feeling drawn to this peaceful spot, Amira entered. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and baked pastries greeted her warmly. The cafe had a vintage charm. Exposed brick walls decorated with black and white photographs, soft jazz music playing quietly, and shelves filled with books and plants. A waiter with a friendly smile approached her. "Good afternoon, miss. What would you like today?" Amira glanced at the menu and said softly, "A mint tea, please. And a slice of almond cake, if you have one." "Excellent choice," the waiter replied, writing down the order. Amira took a seat by the window, where sunlight fell gently on the wooden table. She pulled out her leather notebook and a pen, planning to jot down some ideas for her writing project. The atmosphere was perfect for creativity and reflection. After a few minutes, the waiter returned. But instead of her mint tea and almond cake, he placed a cup of black coffee and a fresh croissant on the table. Amira looked up, slightly surprised. "Excuse me," she said politely, raising her hand to get the waiter's attention. "I think there has been a mistake. This isn't what I ordered." The waiter frowned, slightly confused. "But you said coffee and croissant, right?" Amira shook her head gently. "No, I asked for mint tea and almond cake." The waiter looked uncertain, scratching his head. Before the situation became uncomfortable, a man sitting at the next table stood up. He was tall, with kind brown eyes and a calm presence. His dark hair was neatly combed, and he wore a navy jacket over a white shirt. He approached the waiter and said in a confident yet gentle tone, "Actually, she is right. I heard her order clearly. Please bring her what she asked for." He then turned to Amira with a warm smile and added, "Don't worry about the mistake. You can have whatever you want. I'll take care of the bill, even for what was already served." Amira looked at him, feeling a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "Thank you," she replied softly. The man nodded. Sometimes, mistakes lead to good things. The waiter hurried away to correct the order. Amira returned her gaze to the man, feeling a spark of curiosity and connection. Something about his calm kindness made her smile. And just like that, in a small cafe on a quiet Saturday afternoon, a story began, one filled with unexpected meetings, surprising connections, and the promise of something new. Chapter 2: The Second Encounter. 2 days after their first meeting, Amira found herself drawn back to the same small cafe. She wasn't sure why, maybe it was the warm atmosphere, or perhaps a quiet hope to see the kind stranger again. The city outside buzzed with life, but inside the cafe, a peaceful calm embraced her. She took her usual spot by the window, the same spot where the soft sunlight painted patterns on the wooden table. Amira ordered her mint tea and almond cake once more, the familiar scents comforting her. As she waited, her thoughts drifted, memories of the last conversation, his gentle smile, and the unexpected kindness that had brightened her day. Lost in her reverie, she barely noticed the footsteps approaching. Still deep in thought, a calm voice asked beside her. She looked up, startled, and then smiled warmly. It was him, the man from the cafe, Idris. "Mind if I join you?" he asked politely. "Not at all," Amira replied, gesturing to the empty chair. As he sat down, the soft jazz music in the background seemed to fade, replaced by the easy flow of their conversation. They spoke of light things at first, the weather, the best places to visit in Casablanca, and favorite books. Idris told her about a poetry book he loved, and Amira shared a story about a childhood trip to the seaside. The conversation grew more personal naturally, like two old friends reconnecting rather than strangers meeting for the second time. Amira noticed how attentive Idris was, how his eyes reflected genuine interest and warmth. Hours seemed to pass like minutes. As they parted that afternoon, Amira felt a flutter in her chest, a hopeful, delicate feeling she hadn't expected. She walked away from the cafe with a quiet smile, wondering what the next encounter might bring. Chapter 3: A Connection Without Numbers. Over the next week, Amira and Idris met again at the cafe, not once, but several times. Each encounter felt special, like discovering a secret place where the outside world didn't exist. The cafe became their refuge. The same warm light filtered through the windows, dust particles dancing softly in the air. The familiar scent of coffee, mint tea, and fresh pastries surrounded them like a comforting blanket. During these meetings, they laughed together, sometimes at silly jokes, sometimes at small awkward moments. They shared stories from their childhood. Amira recalled her first day at school and the nervous excitement she felt, while Idris told tales of growing up in his mother's village and the mischievous adventures with his cousins. They talked about their hopes and fears, their dreams for the future. Idris dreamed of opening his own cafe someday, a place filled with books and music, where people could find peace like they did now. Amira confided her passion for writing and her secret wish to publish a novel. Yet, despite their growing closeness, there was a curious hesitation. Neither asked for the other's phone number. It was as if both feared that making their friendship more official would somehow break the delicate magic they had created. Each meeting ended with a soft goodbye and a promise to see each other soon. The warmth of their connection was undeniable, but it was fragile, like a beautiful glass ornament waiting not to be cracked. Then one morning, Amira came to the cafe with anticipation in her heart. She scanned the tables, expecting to see Idris' familiar face. But he wasn't there. She waited, hoping he would arrive late. But the minutes passed, and no sign of him. The next day, she returned again, but still no Idris. And then the day after. With each passing moment, a quiet worry grew inside her. What had happened to the man who had become such a comforting presence in her life? Chapter 4: The Disappearance. Idris's absence weighed heavily on Amira's mind. She wondered if something had gone wrong or if he had simply forgotten their meetings. But the truth was more complicated. Far away from the lively streets of Casablanca, Idris was in a small, quiet village where his mother lived. His mother, Layla, a gentle woman with silver hair and kind eyes, had suddenly fallen seriously ill. Idris had dropped everything to be by her side. The village was peaceful but lacked modern medical facilities, so he took her to the city hospital for treatment. Between hospital visits, phone calls with doctors, and managing his work remotely, Idris had no time to return to the cafe or to meet Amira. Days turned into weeks. Every moment was filled with concern for his mother's health and the heavy responsibility of balancing family and work. Despite the chaos, Idris thought often of Amira, hoping she was well, wondering if she missed him too. Finally, after weeks of care, he found one free day. He hurried to the cafe with hope in his heart. But as he entered, the waiter looked at him with sympathy. "She isn't coming anymore," the waiter said softly. "She finished her mission in the city and left." Idris's heart sank. He walked to the window and looked outside, memories flooding back, the conversations, the laughter, the promise of something new. He wished he had told her everything before leaving, wished he had found a way to stay. But life had other plans. That day, Idris made a silent promise, he would find her again, no matter what. Chapter 5, The Lookalike. Several months had passed since Amira last saw Idris. Life had taken her far from Casablanca to a bustling new city for an important work mission. The streets here were noisier, the people busier, and the rhythm of life faster. Though exciting, it also left Amira feeling a little lost at times, craving moments of calm. One rainy afternoon, after a tiring day filled with meetings and deadlines, Amira decided to take a break. A colleague had recommended a quiet little bookstore cafe nearby, a place where she could escape the noise and enjoy a warm drink surrounded by books. The cafe was tucked away on a narrow street, its windows fogged up from the cool weather outside. Inside, the air smelled of old paper, fresh coffee, and sweet pastries. Soft instrumental music played in the background, and the gentle murmur of a few customers created a cozy atmosphere. Amira found a small table by a shelf filled with novels and took her seat. As she waited to order, her eyes scanned the room. That's when she saw him. A man sat alone at a corner table, quietly reading a book. He looked up and smiled softly at a child passing by. There was something familiar about him, the shape of his face, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, even the gentle tilt of his head when he listened. Her heart raced. Could it be Idris? Summoning her courage, Amira walked over. "Excuse me," she said, her voice slightly trembling. "Are you Idris?" The man closed his book and looked at her with surprise. "No, I'm Kareem," he replied kindly, his voice calm and warm. Amira studied him carefully. Kareem had the same warm brown eyes as Idris, the same friendly smile, even the same soft laugh that seemed to bubble up easily. But there was a difference in the way he spoke, a subtle accent, a different rhythm. They started talking. Kareem told her about his work as a graphic designer and his love for poetry. Amira shared some stories about her travels and her passion for writing. Despite the kindness in Kareem's eyes, Amira couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The connection she had felt with Idris was not here, replaced instead by a strange curiosity and a growing puzzle she couldn't yet solve. After they parted, Amira walked out into the cool evening air, her mind swirling with questions. How could two men look so identical? Was it a coincidence or something more? The city lights blurred as she walked slowly home, a new mystery unfolding before her. Chapter 6, The Search for Truth. Later that month, Idris traveled to the same city for a professional seminar. His mind was still heavy with thoughts of Amira and the strange news she had shared about the man who looked exactly like him. After the seminar, Idris decided to take a walk through the quiet streets, hoping the fresh air would clear his mind. As he turned a corner near a small cafe, he saw a familiar figure sitting at a table outside. It was Amira. She looked up and smiled the moment she noticed him. Her eyes sparkled with warmth and relief. "Idris," she called softly as she waved him over. He approached, heart pounding with a mix of joy and nervousness. "I saw someone who looks exactly like you," she said once he sat down beside her. "His name is Kareem. I spoke to him." Idris blinked, absorbing her words. "Where? Can you show me?" Without hesitation, Amira led him to the bookstore cafe where she had met Kareem. The streets were busy with people rushing home, but Idris felt as though time slowed down. They entered the cafe, and there, sitting in his usual corner, was Kareem, engrossed in a book. Idris hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward. Kareem looked up and their eyes met. The similarity was undeniable. It was like looking into a mirror. Same eyes, same smile, same mannerisms. Kareem laughed softly, and Idris found himself smiling in response, an inexplicable connection blossoming instantly. They spent hours talking, comparing memories, habits, favorite foods, and childhood stories. The coincidences piled up. They both loved the same songs, had similar tastes in books, and even shared the same nervous laugh when telling embarrassing stories. Yet, a deep question remained: why had they never met before? Confused but determined, Idris and Karim decided to search for answers together. They contacted the hospital where Idris was born and requested old birth records. The staff was surprised but willing to help. After days of waiting, the truth began to emerge, a truth that would change their lives forever. Chapter 7: The Big Mistake. The old hospital smelled of antiseptic and worn paper. The walls, once white, were now faded and chipped, bearing the marks of time. Idris and Karim sat side by side in the records office, a small room filled with dusty files, the soft hum of a ceiling fan, and the occasional footsteps of nurses passing by. A kind but tired nurse pulled out several large folders from the archives, her hands gentle yet steady. She flipped through the yellowed papers carefully. "Let me show you something important," she said quietly. Idris and Karim leaned closer, their eyes fixed on the document in front of them. The nurse explained, "On the day you were born, there were 2 women in the maternity ward who delivered babies. One woman gave birth to twins, and the other had a single baby." Idris's throat tightened. She continued, "Due to a tragic mistake, one of the twins was given to the other mother by accident. This error was never discovered at the time." Karim's eyes widened in shock, and he looked over at Idris, his face pale. "So, we were separated at birth?" Idris whispered, his voice trembling. The nurse nodded softly. "Yes. You were twins, but you grew up in different cities, with different families, unaware of each other's existence." A silence filled the room as the 2 men absorbed the weight of the revelation. Idris's mind raced back to his childhood memories, his mother Layla's gentle voice, the warm home in Casablanca, the stories she told him about family. Karim thought of his own upbringing in a small apartment filled with books and art, the love of his adoptive mother, but also a quiet feeling of emptiness he never quite understood. "How could this happen?" Karim asked quietly. "Why didn't anyone notice?" The nurse sighed. "It was a tragic oversight. Hospitals were busy, records were kept by hand, and sometimes mistakes happen. Unfortunately, no one caught this one." Idris felt a mix of emotions. Anger, sadness, confusion, but also a strange relief. After years of wondering about his past, some answers were finally coming. "What do we do now?" Idris asked, his eyes searching Karim's. "We find our families," Karim said firmly. "We talk to our mothers. We heal." The 2 men exchanged a determined look. Before leaving, the nurse handed them copies of the birth records, the only proof they would have of their true connection. Outside the hospital, the sun was setting, casting long shadows over the city streets. Idris and Karim stood side by side, knowing their lives would never be the same again. Chapter 8: A New Beginning. Several months passed since the truth about Idris and Karim's birth had been revealed. Slowly, their worlds began to blend, and the brothers learned to share their lives. Inspired by their shared passion for creating welcoming spaces, Idris and Karim decided to open a cafe together, a place that would celebrate second chances and new beginnings. They named it Second Chance. The cafe was a warm and inviting place, with soft lighting, walls decorated with local art, and shelves filled with books and poetry. It was designed to be a refuge, just like the cafes where Idris and Amira had first met. Amira was one of their first visitors. She felt the familiar warmth as she stepped inside, and her heart swelled with happiness seeing the brothers working side by side. She had written an article titled "The Coffee That Changed Everything," which told their incredible story of friendship, family, and fate. The article went viral, touching thousands of readers who shared their own stories of unexpected connections. One evening, after the cafe had quieted down, Idris approached Amira with a smile. In his hand was a cup of cappuccino with almond milk, her favorite. "No more waiting," he said softly. "Can I finally have your number?" Amira laughed, the sound light and joyful. "Only if you promise not to disappear again." "No more big mistakes," he promised. "Only big beginnings," she replied. The future felt bright and full of hope. Chapter 9: The Wedding. 2 years later, under a large white tent by the beach, Idris and Amira stood surrounded by their closest friends and family. The soft sound of waves mingled with the gentle music playing in the background, creating a perfect atmosphere for celebration. The sun was beginning to set, casting warm pink and orange hues across the sky. A gentle sea breeze rustled the decorations, and the salty air filled everyone's lungs with a refreshing calm. Idris looked at Amira, radiant in a simple, elegant white dress. His eyes reflected love, admiration, and a deep sense of peace. Amira smiled back, feeling as though every moment had led her to this one. Karim stood proudly by Idris's side as his best man. Their mothers, Layla and Karim's adoptive mother, sat close by, tears of joy shining in their eyes. During the ceremony, the story of how a simple mistake, a mix-up in a cafe order, had led to love, reunion, and new beginnings was shared. Everyone listened, touched by the journey that brought them all together. When the vows were exchanged, Idris whispered softly to Amira, "You were the best mistake that ever happened to me." She laughed gently and replied, "And you were the answer I didn't know I needed." As they sealed their promises with a kiss, the crowd cheered. The couple then walked hand in hand toward their future, ready to write the next chapter together. Thank you so much for listening to A Big Mistake. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more easy English stories. Your support helps us bring more learning content and beautiful stories to life. Tell us in the comments, have you ever experienced a mistake that led to something wonderful? What did you learn from this story? We look forward to seeing you in the next story. Until then, keep reading, keep listening, and keep learning English.